Project time management in a nutshell is keeping a project on schedule. All projects have three overarching goals: stay in scope, stay in budget, and finally, stay on time. All three pillars have their own processes and difficulties. Time management requires solid planning, good communication, and team management skills to reach the project's goal. Why manage time? First, time is a finite resource. Once it's gone, it can't be used again. Second, keeping schedules are one of the major sources of stress and conflict on a project. Third, keeping all the separate parts working together at the right time is a must for a successful project. Finally, in our ever-shrinking world, the differing cultural attitudes towards time and schedule endangers on-time project completion. Project managers must understand the impacts and results of each of these factors. IBM reports that 34% of U.S. IT projects are behind schedule or finish behind schedule. By contrast, 25% finish over budget. Neither is acceptable, but these numbers speak to the difficulty of keeping projects on schedule. According to Defense News, the U.S. Air Force's Defense Enterprise Accounting and Management System was supposed to roll out in October 2009. The project has been pushed back to April 2017, and the budget has ballooned from $420 million to $2.2 billion. While there have been problems with more than time management in this project, much of the increase in budget comes from the additional 8 years this project is expected to take. This is just one example of the disaster that can arise from poor project time management. Good news, all is not lost. There is a process for managing time in an IT project. The 6 processes of time management are defining activities, sequencing activities, estimating activity resources, estimating activity durations, developing the schedule, and finally, controlling the schedule. So, what is an activity? An activity, sometimes called a task, is an element of work normally found on the work breakdown structure that has an expected duration, cost, and resource requirements. When defining activities, a more detailed work breakdown structure is developed so realistic cost and duration estimates can be made. Each activity has predecessors, successors, relationships, leads and lags, resource requirements, constraints, and assumptions. These defined activities make up the activity list and are identified on the list by their name, identifier, and a brief description. A milestone is typically not an activity in and of itself. It could mark the completion of a series of activities and are useful for monitoring progress or setting scheduled goals. A milestone might be reached via a project deliverable or acceptance of part of a project by the customer. Selection and tracking of key milestones can help keep a project on track. After identification of activities, their dependencies must be sequenced. Activities flow in a logical progression. When making a sandwich, you must have bread before spreading the peanut butter. There are 3 different types of dependencies: mandatory, discretionary, and external. Activity sequencing can be shown visually via a network diagram. The 2 most common types are arrow diagrams and precedence diagrams. Step 3 of the time management process is estimating activity resources. The project manager must figure out how many people, how much equipment, and the amount of materials each activity will need. This step is a must, as estimating activity durations will be difficult without all the necessary information. After completing the first 3 steps of the time management process, the project team should finally be able to figure out how long each activity should take. Of course, these are estimates, but the previous planning should allow for accuracy. The duration of each activity is how long it will take from beginning to end. This should not be confused with the effort required, which is the actual time spent on the activity. Estimates should include optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic scenarios to ensure that all scenarios can be identified and addressed. Identifying activity durations on a best case only basis would almost assure an overscheduled project. Developing the schedule is where all the previous steps come together. A key point here is the schedule must be realistic. The customer might be happy to see a short timeline, but sure won't be happy when the target date has flown by. There are many scheduling tools available for use. Gantt charts, critical path analysis, and PERT analysis all can help keep a project on schedule. The work does not end when the schedule is finalized. Controlling the schedule allows for project managers to identify and detect problems with the project schedule. No schedule is perfect, so flexibility and adaptability are key to this step. Identifying schedule issues and addressing them is a must. Project managers should be skilled in motivation and interpersonal skills to be able to keep the schedule on track. Finally, problems should be communicated as early as they are identified. Customers and bosses should know of schedule difficulties early on in order to help manage expectations. Time management is one of the 3 pillars of IT project management. Failure to manage time can spell disaster for any project. By following the 6-step time management process, a schedule can be developed and controlled. In the end, an on-time project is the goal, and by using the processes identified here, the chances of an on-time project increase dramatically.